Justin Cohen is on your left. Dan Musser on your right. 11-0 versus 10-1. Death Shadow, Bant Eldrazi. Players taking a look at their opening hand, and we'll be underway here in just a moment. Death Shadow cards?
No, Death Shadow is a deck.
Just Shadow, okay.
Bant Eldrazi's, okay, I know the colors, and I know largely what the cards are going to be and the strategy in question.
Okay, got it. Understood.
But if it was Bant, Snapcaster Mage, Voice of Resurgence, random cards, that's Bant cards.
That's just Bant cards.
Bant cards.
Got it. We will see who's on the play here in just a moment. This is actually kind of the hallmark matchup of the tournament right now.
It has been certainly our 1 and 2 most prevalent and top performing decks, at least on camera.
Yeah, and Justin Cohen wins this match, locks up a top 8.
Yep. X3 should be the cut here, I would imagine. Some may miss, but Cohen's tiebreakers at 12-0 would be untouchable.
Looks like a Plains here for Dan the Man. But actually, let's take it back. He's going to start off with an Eldrazi Temple. Cohen will target himself with the Bauble. See if he wants to leave that card on the top. He'll draw that card. It's a basic forest.
So it looks like a fairly land-heavy hand here, and Cohen did elect to leave the forest on top. Multiple copies of Traverse. So now the question is, how quickly can he get to Delirium? Because I don't know if he has a threat card in that hand.
He's halfway home. Halfway home's not bad. Let's see what land he wants to search up here, and if he wants to take 3 as opposed to just 1. Oh, yeah. Down to 17.
It is important to be able to cast Death Shadow on time. You don't want to stay with it in your hand. So there is a burden to get down to 12 as fast as you can.
I just love that this deck just kind of breaks the fundamental rules of Magic, where everyone's like, yeah, I'll just search for my land and a turn, enter the battlefield tap.
If you love non-intuitive play,
yeah.
We've been watching these people Tarfire themselves and play Ravnica Dual Lands untapped for no value.
Josh Layton did say during his win at Grand Prix Vancouver that he targeted himself with Tarfire more than his opponent's creatures or opponent, which I like. Bloodstained Mire is going to bring Cohen down to at least 16.
And there's a lot of really subtle but important technical operation here. He's fetching now because if he knows for sure he wants to get this land, he doesn't want the Street Wraith to draw this card. And there's some sensitivity here because there's only so many lands that he can fetch for in the deck. And he needs to make sure that his fetch lands line up with the appropriate duel that he wants to get. So sometimes he's, drawing cards first and before fetching if he wants to draw a land and increase the odds of that. But if he knows the fetch land needs to get a particular card or he wants to thin the deck, then he fetches first. And all this stuff adds up. It's small percentage points, but it's all important.
Reality Smash to the draw there for Dan Musser. Cohen, of course, just played a Tarmogoyf. It's a 2-3. We'll be heading his way as he untaps those 2 lands. He'll take a draw step here for his 3rd turn of the game. Hi-ya. Verdant Catacombs. Still has that Street Wraith at the ready. Also has a copy of Kolaghan's Command. Musser's start is slow. Hasn't done much.
So again, mission here, try to get to Delirium. Turn that Traverse into a threat card. Street Wraith gets him up to a 3rd card type and grows the Tarmogoyf. Can he get card type number 4 in there?
10 a.m. Legacy Challenge players, your round 3 pairings are being posted on pink paper at the gathering point. 10 a.m. Legacy, please find your round 3 pairings and find your seats.
Time to sacrifice a Verdant Catacombs.
I think for a deck that on the surface looks highly volatile, there is so much variance reduction in here.
Oh yeah.
You draw the same stuff
yeah.
over and over again.
Let's not get it twisted. This deck does the same thing every game.
So with Street Wraith and the Bauble, you're kind of playing 52 cards. I think that's a crude shorthand, but you are kind of playing 52 cards, and you have Traverse.
Yeah. You get to play a couple, 1s and 2s like the one-teamer Battle Rage, and you can traverse for the Gore Clan Rampager if you opt to play that.
And the Street Wraith really raises the floor on Kolaghan's Command and Liliana the Last Hope, because those are two cards that they have spots where they're really good, and they have some spots where they don't really do very much. But if you have a Street Wraith in your graveyard, well, it's always draw a card if you want it.
Another copy of Tarmogoyf here off the Street Wraith. Now this deck's the real deal. I don't know if it's going to win the tournament or not, between Sam and Justin and Bradley Carpenter being in day number 2, and Michael Majors, can't forget him as well, but this deck is legit. Musser holding on to a path here. He's going to take the damage. Going to fall down to 17.
Now Cohen still only with the 3 card types.
Time for a second Tarmogoyf, perhaps? Yes. And he'll pass a turn. Is it time for Musser to play one of these paths? Yes. Goodbye, Tarmogoyf. Cohen will likely search up a land here. He's got 2 basics in the list. And he will grab the deck and take 1 out. He's got a forest and a swamp. And he will select a swamp. Over to Musser we go. He'll draw a Eldrazi Sky Spawner. He has another Temple and a Reality Smasher. And yeah, again, what's so weird about this Dust Shadow deck is it tries to kill itself so much that a 5/5 haster in a situation like this is a real problem for Cohen.
And Cohen can't interact with the card at instant speed.
Yep.
So it is a specific issue in the matchup. I mean, this game could easily come down to, you know, let's say Cohen untaps, plays Liliana the Veil and minuses, and Cohen just has Musser just has a second copy of Reality Smasher. That could just be game.
And here is Reality Smasher. So in for 5 comes Dan Musser. Cohen's going to fall down to 4, and all of a sudden, Cohen might have to put the brakes on.
And still not at Delirium for this Traverse. Still a card short.
Top card is a Thoughtseize.
Well, that is card type number 4 to pair with land, creature, and artifact in the graveyard. Also, Thoughtseize can potentially get a follow-up Reality Smasher out of the hand.
Well, let's take a look at what Musser's working with here. Well, there's another Reality Smasher. So you mentioned that. He's got an Ancient Stirrings Noble Hierarch, an Eldrazi Sky Spawner, and a Ghost Quarter.
Uncastables and a Reality Smasher.
Now, does he have a basic forest in the list?
He does not. He has 2 forests. He has 2 forests.
So he can GQ himself if he needs to.
Yep.
That's in play here.
All right, off to get food. Dolly's lieutenants. Yes, they are.
So that Thoughtseize there, a huge draw for Justin. Gives him the information, gets a Reality Smasher out of the hand, gets into Delirium, gets another card type in the graveyard for Tarmogoyf. Just
doesn't have to worry about any burn.
He now knows whether or not he wants to leave the Tarmogoyf back on defense, and it's just a huge draw there.
Now I'm curious if he wants to go towards Liliana or not here. He could play ultra safe if he wants to. And because he's now got the 4th card type, he could say, you know what, I'm going to leave Tarmogoyf back on defense. I'm going to search for Death Shadow. Rock and roll that way. A lot of options here for Cohen. He'll play a forest. Here is maybe Traverse. He hasn't played land yet this turn. He got the land from Path, so he hasn't played a land yet. Yep. Being careful, making sure the game state is appropriate, which I can appreciate. Traversing for a Death Shadow. And now he'll go towards Liliana.
And I like this line a lot because Musser is threatening next turn to cast a Sky Spawner if he happens to find blue mana. That Liliana is not getting any better. This is his best opportunity to take care of a Reality Smasher. So now Cohen's got the decision. He can attack. It leaves him dead to Reality Smasher off the top. And because Musser has an Ancient Stirrings in his hand, if he draws green, he gets a lot of looks at it. But you are potentially giving Musser another turn by not making the attack.
Yeah, I personally don't like attacking this turn. I would play a little more conservative. We'll see how things do play out here. Yavimaya coasts the draw.
Big draw right here. Because now, if Musser wants to, he can simply cast the Sky Spawner. Now, Cohen's deck has a lot of removal spells. No guarantee you get across the finish line that way. He can also just... The problem is that if you Stirrings, then you're cut off of playing any blue or green spells for the remainder of the turn. Because he can't play the Coast and the Ghost Quarter right now.
Yep.
But I think that I like Stirrings here because if you hit Reality Smasher, you win the game. And if you hit Thought-Knot Seer, you got to feel very good about your position.
I wouldn't hate my spot if I hit Thought-Knot Seer. I get to take the Death Shadow.
Yep.
Yeah, I like some upside here.
Right. I think the upside here is too high to let this go.
It's the worst Stirrings I've ever seen.
Okay, that was not great. It had a high upside, but also there was a floor.
Yep.
And we hit it.
3 lands, 2 other Stirrings. That's the worst Ancient Stirrings I've ever seen. And I'm not even sure which. Man. I think you take Breeding Pool, but he's going to take a basic forest.
Well, his life total is under some duress here.
That's true.
And with the forest and the Yavimaya coast and the plains, he can kind of cast everything. So it makes sense to take the forest. That was painful, though. I mean, I like Musser going for it there because he's got some draws that are just flat wins on the spot and a subset of draws where he's not winning necessarily, but his position has gotten a lot better. And but the cost was high. It was his whole turn if he missed, and here we are.
He missed.
He missed.
Yes. The whiff. Three mana. It might be Kolaghan's command, huh? Maybe not. Justin Cohen's got a little bit to think about here. Hand right now, Death Shadow, which he searched for via Traverse the Open Wall. He's got a Kolaghan's command he's been sitting with for a while, and a copy of Fluted Delta. First things first, let's go Tarmogoyf for 5. Musser going to fall down to 6.
I think the other reason to want a Stirrings is if you hit Drowner, no, you can't cast it that turn, but there's a very good chance Drowner is a game-winning play.
Yeah. There's Death Shadow. 11-11 Death Shadow, mind you. Let's go to Musser. Big draw. Didn't get a great look. He'll play a Foresta. Sky Spawner Hierarch mystery card right now for Dan.
And if he casts both the Sky Spawner and the Hierarch, that takes him to 5 off the Yavimaya coast, and then both creatures are lethal. So Liliana edicts something, and then Musser has to double chump block. The question then is, what are you drawing to that gives you a chance to win this game? You still are on Reality Smasher, assuming Cohen has no blockers on the way back. Drowner of Hope is still likely to be good.
I think he might have Thought-Knot Seer in hand. I think that may have been the draw. Yeah, that's what he drew. So he can play Thought-Knot Seer plus Sky Spawner. And that's 3 bodies, but he loses 2 of them, so it's...
The problem that I have, though, is if you are going to block with... Whatever you play, if you play 3 things, they're all potentially dead because there's a Liliana on the table and you have to double jump block. And I think the cost is very high of giving Cohen another card here because if he finds a blocker on the way back, now suddenly Reality Smasher is cut off as a win. If he has a 3rd creature on the battlefield, now Drowner of Hope doesn't necessarily get you there because you have to block and tap twice. So I think the cost of the card is just too high here if you assume the Thought-Knot Seer is not going to survive this turn.
No, what are you suggesting he does otherwise?
Just play Noble Hierarch and the Sky Spawner. And then at least you're not giving Cohen a draw step, assuming that all 3 creatures have to die.
I feel like I'm confused.
So you're double chump blocking.
Okay, I mean, you're hoping to.
And Liliana minuses.
Sure.
So on the table, all 3 of your creatures are dead. Once you're at that point, I think there's a big cost in giving Cohen the card.
Sure, okay, I got you.
Off the
Thought-Knot Seer, I got you.
Because Cohen had 4 mana and just said go last turn. His hand's probably empty.
Yep, I got you.
And you can't beat any live card here is probably too much for you to beat.
Yep, I got you now.
And I definitely don't like doing it. If you're going to do it, I think
lead with Thought-Knot.
Right, because now, if he has a Fatal Push or I think the card is Kolaghan's command, now you lose one of your blockers, you're just dead on the table.
Yep. I think he's dead no matter how he played his stuff.
Right. Cohen has a Colgon's command in his hand, so
Yes.
so Musser's beat. There's too much removal here for him to survive combat. But I think you need to play the Hierarch and the Sky Spawner, because if you're losing everything anyway, there's no point in the Thought-Knot Seer entering the battlefield. If you're going to cast Thought-Knot Seer, it should have happened first.
Sure.
Because if the card in his hand is Fatal Push, you at least get an opportunity to block.
Sure. Understood. All of it for naught. Justin Cohen going to win this game here over Dan Musser. Death Shadow up a game here over Bant Eldrazi. We will start with Musser's sideboard. 3 Stony Silence, 2 Blessed Alliance, 2 Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Negate, 2 Rest in Peace and some fun ofs here in Thragtusk, Disdainful Stroke, Elspeth Sun's Champion, and a Natural State.
So EC talked me into the 2 copies of Blessed Alliance. And it's just, Cohen only has so many threats. It's a very solid answer there. I think the 1 copy of Thragtusk is probably good enough. It's a lot of value. It's a lot of presence on the battlefield. The Elspeth might also be something to work to. I don't know if the matchup is just too fast for him to get there, but Elspeth's minus power and plus power are very good in the matchup. If he thinks he can drag it out, Elspeth's potentially a game winner.
For Justin Cohen, 3 Lingering Souls, 2 Fatal Push, 2 Surgical Extract, and 2 Fulminator Mage. 1 ofs in Ranger Evios, Ancient Grudge, Kataki Wars, Wage, Grafdigger's Cage, Aethersworn Canonist, and a Terminate.
So when we saw Cohen play this matchup before, he did not go to the late game package of Lingering Souls, Fulminator Mages, Ranger Evios, whatever. I would expect the same philosophy here of just bring in the Terminate, bring in the 2 copies of Fatal Push, and try to stay as low to the ground as possible.
Those are the options there for both players. So, as they get ready here for game number 2, they will sideboard shuffle up. Dan Musser will be on the play. Let's talk about the Season 1 schedule here on the SCG Tour for 2017. The Atlanta Invitational seems like years ago now that Jacob Ball did win that tournament to qualify for the Players' Championship. Then we were in Columbus and Richmond. We did our regional championships. Baltimore Team Open, where Patrick Sullivan, he got 8th place.
Yep, a defining finish in my career.
But that tournament was won by Ben Stark, Matt Nass, and Sam Pardee. We're here in Indy. We'll crown a champion here eventually. And then a couple weeks from now, I'm telling you right now, it's going to sell out. SCG Dallas.
I would recommend, if you're going to play in Dallas, which is Modern, March 11th and 12th, I would recommend registering as soon as possible, because that event is likely to sell out. Then we go to Worcester, Massachusetts for Legacy, April 8th and 9th. Then Standard in Atlanta and Louisville, Modern in Baltimore and Charlotte, and then the Season 1 Invitational, Roanoke, Virginia, June 30th to July 2nd, Modern and Standard as the invitational formats.
We got play mats for days, folks. You play the Standard Open. It's not Smuggler's Copter. Not anymore.
Changed it.
That one's long gone, given its banning. So we've got a beautiful Ether Hub instead for all of our Standard Open and Classic players. For Modern, like this weekend, hello, Ether Vial. You can get that for your Modern Classics and Opens. And then last but certainly not least, you want Gamble? You got Gamble for our Legacy Open and Classic players. Free exclusive play mats here with entry into any Season 1 Open or Classic on the SCG Tour. And wait, we're not kidding. We know that Dallas, those players, they show out. So that event is going to sell out.
Furthermore, make sure that when you register for one of these events, you redeem your voucher at the site to get your playmat.
Yes.
Because in Baltimore, my teammate failed to do that.
Is this more? This is more Chad, isn't it?
Now I don't have a Gamble playmat.
This is more Chad. That just threw it away.
I didn't name names.
I just did.
Okay.
I just did.
So we're down 3 playmats. And
bad
I would have
beat.
liked to have the Gamble one.
It's a bad beat right there.
So, fortunately, for all these other events, you aren't at the mercy of the incompetence of the people around you. You can just resolve this yourself. But to reiterate, make sure to redeem that voucher on site at the event in question to pick up your playmat, whether it be it Ether Hub, Sensei's Divine Top, or
Sensei's
Gamble,
Divine Top, huh?
Gamble, what have you.
It was Ether Vial.
Ether Vial.
It's okay. I'm not judging.
Top
we
was
had
the
top
last.
previously.
Right.
I'm not judging.
Excuse me.
I'm not judging. Plus, who would want it? Well, actually, the top artwork on that playmat was really good.
It was nice.
So it was really good.
Yeah.
I hate Sensei's Divine Top, but the artwork is really good. So there's that. Dan Musser going to be on the play here in just a moment against Justin Cohen. I want to thank everybody for joining us here. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan. We are in the booth. Nick Miller's over in the sideboard. At SCG Tour, hashtag SCGINDY all weekend long. Join in on the conversation on Twitter. And don't forget, you will get to pick the quarterfinals so long as you are a member of the feature match area on twitch.tv/SCG Tour. And these feature matches are looking like they're going to be a doozy. The cream, as it often does, is rising to the top here this week in Indianapolis. Justin Cohen looking for a 12-0 start to lock up his top 8. And Dan Musser, even if he does lose this match, he's still very much in top 8 contention. Michael Majors walking away from his match right now behind Justin Cohen. I think he was walking with the match slip.
Usually is.
Yeah. Being in the top 8 on Major Michael's resume. Musser giving it a long look here. Not sure if he's going to keep or not. It looks like he will. And now it's time for Justin Cohen to go in the tank.
Cohen has displayed extremely tight operations with this deck all weekend long. No surprise to see him as the lone 11-0.
It's funny, we talked to Cohen on our way out the door yesterday, and he said, man, I should have went to Vancouver.
Yep.
Had I known
Yeah.
this deck was that good, I would have definitely gone to Vancouver. His roommate and good friend, Sam Black, he said, Justin, we got a good one here. You should come. And he said, man, you say that all the time.
Right, you don't know.
Yeah.
He said something along the lines of, I didn't know it was this.
Yeah. I didn't know my deck was this good.
Okay, well, this is a draw.
Yeah, this is part of the appeal of playing this deck, because while Justin Cohen did take a moment to traverse, fall down to 18 for a swamp to turn his hand on, Dan Musser said, you know what, Temple, Thought Not Seer. Like the old days of Eldrazi Winter last year, take a look at your hand. Tarmogoyf, Inquisition Kozilek, ×2. Actually, just one, excuse me. That's a Death Shadow I'm confusing that with. There's a Thoughtseize, there's a Tarfire, there's Terminate, and there's a basic Swamp. So Cohen's hand is on. And you know what? Musser's almost forced to take the Terminate here.
That sounds right to me. And if Musser tanked on this opening, I suspect he doesn't have another land in his hand.
I'm inclined to agree with you. No
Because
colored mana.
Temple, Thought Not, what could your hand possibly look like where this is hard? And I think it's probably a hand that doesn't have any other lands in it. Find out in a moment.
Got to take that Terminate. That's exiled, which is important for Tarmogoyf. Right now, Justin Cohen working with just a 1-2 Tarmogoyf. Basic forest to draw. Pretty nice draw there for Justin Cohen.
Well, it's tough because the basic lands don't really facilitate him playing multiple spells in a turn, because the bottleneck's going to be on black mana, and he only has the swamp to work with. A fetch land there would have been great, because then you can get another black source of mana and get to 2 spells in a turn.
Well, what I envision next turn, I think we're going to see a discard spell this turn.
Yep.
Take a Thoughtseize. Next turn, you can go Forest, play Tarmogoyf off of the Forest and the Stomping Ground, and another discard spell. Now, you nailed it right on the head of Dan Musser has no other mana available. He's got 2 Eldrazi Displacers, he's got an Ancient Stirrings, Noble Hierarch, and sure, he could sort of cast Engineer Explosives, kind of. Ish.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Not for much.
Yeah, ish.
So you can't, so from this perspective, the question is just, what happens if he draws a source of green and white mana? What's the worst case scenario here? Because if he bricks, then you're just playing against the Thought Not Seer. I'm assuming that tilts it towards Engineered Explosives, because you can't cut him off of a Displacer.
I think
There's also an immediacy issue too, because you have another discard spell in your hand. So I guess you could go back-to-back on the Displacers here, but that's a big risk if Musser draws white mana next turn.
If he draws white mana next turn, it's
really bad.
News. Yeah.
Really bad.
If you draw, white mana, Cavern, what have you. But there's some real upside here. If he doesn't draw white mana, I get your second Displacer, and then I am doing great.
Yes.
I think that's just going to be Justin Cohen's turn here.
But if the top of this deck is white mana.
It is.
Yep.
Cavernous Souls counts as white mana.
Though the Cavern draw makes it very good for Cohen that he didn't take Engineered Explosives.
Very true. Which is basically a dead card at this point.
Right. Needs some help here.
Now, what's going to be interesting now, and if you're Musser, we're working with perfect information, so it's very easy for us to say, don't name whatever Noble Hierarch's creature type is, because it'll just get Tarfired. But also, actually, Musser's working with that info, because he saw his hand, he knows there's a Tarfire over there, and he knows that Eldrazi Displacer is pretty safe.
Yeah, I'm guessing you just are supposed to be naming Eldrazi here.
We'll confirm the name on Cavernous Souls here in just a moment, and he's going to go with Eldrazi.
It's not just about this turn, too. There are future draw steps where, on the balance, you're much happier having that on Eldrazi than naming Noble Hierarch.
Sure.
But bad news for Cohen. He really needed a 1-turn window there to fade.
Here's an attack for 4. Cohen's going to fall down to 12. And now, as here comes Eldrazi Displacer, again, we work ourselves into a very weird game when you are playing against Death Shadow, because the more hits, the bigger the shadow gets. So right now the shadow's just a 1/1. But if Cohen ends up taking another hit, the shadow becomes much larger and can kind of check these creatures. Now, Eldrazi Displacer does a great job of checking the Death Shadow.
Yep.
But if that Eldrazi Displacer ends up leaving the battlefield for whatever reason, things get interesting. Cohen might be thinking might be thinking Tarfire you or me.
Okay.
Excuse me. Why did I think he was going to Tarfire Dan? That would be silly. Fatal push to draw. Big one.
Although
not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
But big.
Starts the game standard classic.
You kind of need to get Musser into a holding pattern where he just needs to use all of his mana on displacing your threats for a little bit. Try to get to a draw step where you can trigger Revolt, get the displacer off the battlefield, and then have a better presence.
So actually, it's really kind of interesting here because I'm curious what Cohen's going to play. And the reason I say that is because if he were to play Tarmogoyf this turn, and he's going to play both, but if he were to play Tarmogoyf by itself, it would have been a 1, 2, 3, 4 power creature. Well, we can check it right now, 4, 5. It would have checked what Musser had.
So I think that you had to kind of swallow up this turn, get as much on the battlefield as possible to force Musser to commit as much mana as possible to having to displace your creatures.
So if he plays a Tarmogoyf and leaves the swamp up, Musser can't attack.
Right. Well, no, you could potentially just go tap down your Tarmogoyf and hit you.
Perfect. That turns on Fatal Push's Revolt.
Sure.
So then he could have Fatal Pushed away either creature, most likely the Displacer, and he takes the hit for 4, obviously.
But what if Musser doesn't cooperate?
Well,
and then
he can't attack then.
But he can still just pass to you, and then what's your turn looking like? I guess you always have access to the no, because if you play the Death Shadow, then you're cut off of black mana.
I'm saying just play Tarmogoyf with black up and pass.
No, I understand. The problem is that if Musser doesn't cooperate and he's just like play a thing, maybe not, and say go, you have to draw a second black mana before you can cast the Death Shadow. And you might just get overwhelmed if he's just casting stuff.
That's true.
I like Cohen kind of swallowing up the one turn because now Musser has to commit a lot of mana to managing the battlefield. Both of the threats on Cohen's side are larger or potentially larger than what Musser has.
Now, Musser drew a Brushland, which does turn on engineering explosives, but Musser says, you know what? Just go. Tarfire the draw. Now, the only card that Dan knows that Justin has right now is the Inquisition of Kozilek. He does not know about Fatal Push. He does not know about Tarfire. And what Dan has done here, and you can see the way he separated his mana, he's saying, I can activate Eldrazi Displacer twice.
Yep.
To tap both of your creatures and attack you for a bunch of damage. He could have played Engineered Explosives that turn on 1 to blow up the Death Shadow, elected not to. So we're going to see how both of these players kind of work their way through this particular game. Musser working with a lot more life than Cohen is, but Cohen's creatures get large and close out the game very quickly.
But as long as Musser can prevent Death Shadow from doing anything, he can manage the Tarmogoyf, so he has a lot more life to work with, because the Tarmogoyf's only so big. Death Shadow complicates the racing math quite a bit more.
Displacer, I believe, is going to displace the Tarmogoyf. Now here's an Inquisition of Kozilek. Now I am a little curious if Justin knows about the interaction with Displacer and how it works with Fatal Push.
That seemed like a solid window to take care of the Displacer.
Yeah, I think it's a window open to take care of it.
He's only on the 1 black mana here. So, this commitment of black mana to cast the discard spell is significant because now Fatal Push is off the table. And on the table, Musser just gets to, by the looks of things, Musser just goes, all right, now tap your Death Shadow, untap, hit you for 7, go, and now
do the same thing again.
Yeah. Which is exactly what it looks like is happening here.
Didn't get a great look at what Musser drew as he's reaching for the lands very quickly here. Looks like another copy of Thought Knot Seer.
Well, if you're going to attack, I think you just need to commit to the Displacer.
I don't think anything has changed.
Right.
To where you're going to change. So here's an untap. Here's a draw. Bloodstained Mire. Which matters quite a bit now, because if Justin did not know about the interaction with Displacer turning on Fatal Push, well, he's got it now.
Well, he doesn't have it now because
no basic swamp.
A Bloodstained Mire going and getting a dual land kills him.
Kills him, yeah, you're very right. So what it could be is he just plays...
Well, he needs to be able to beat both threats, and he can't.
Yeah, he really can't right now, you're right.
He can kill one, but both of his creatures get tapped, and he just dies.
So what it feels like to me is he had that window with the push. I just don't think he realized it. Because I don't think there's a way out right now.
Yeah, and this was on the table. This was if Musser did it last turn, he was going to do it this turn.
Mm-hmm. Now he could say push. What could he draw?
Does he have something that he could draw through the Thought-Knot Seer?
That's
another
the question.
push, right? You
No.
kill the Thought-Knot Seer,
Well,
and then you
he
draw.
doesn't have another
Oh,
black mana.
he can't do it through the black mana, right?
Yeah, and he can't double tar fire.
Right. So it looks like if he's pushing right now, he is aware that that was a window that he had last turn.
Maybe he's only realizing it now for this turn. It's unclear. Yeah, he'll draw. Again, I think he's on no for.
Abrupt Decay.
Okay. Nope, no black.
Oh, yeah, he's still doesn't black. Right. Yep.
He drew a fatal push.
Right. And that's no good.
Yep. Only one basic swamp. If he wants to search for a black source, he'd have to sacrifice Bloodstained Mire, get an untapped black source, which would kill him dead exactly. And as he sits at 3 life with a tar fire and a fatal push in hand against an Eldrazi Displacer, he's got no way out of this one. Dan Musser going to win game number 2 here against Justin Cohen. Bantel Eldrazi, Death Shadow, you're getting ready for a third one. And you know what? I'm glad because this matchup's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, Cohen shaking his head there. Think he maybe needed to push there, the turn he Inquisitioned.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of consequences as a result of that. And Musser, I mean, his line was pretty face up from the looks of things. Going to tap your things twice. Going to knock you down to 3. You're going to need 2 kill spells. And that's asking a lot for you without breaking a fetch land. Yeah. And that bore out exactly as Musser drew it up.
Now that we've seen a sideboarded game, anything stand out to you? Anything change for you?
No, I mean, I like Cohen keeping the deck lean and not messing around with the Lingering Souls, Ranger of Eos type of stuff. The Terminate, the extra fatal pushes seem like a good sideboard. Musser did not show Blessed Alliance in that game, but he only has the 2. I still think that card's worth bringing in for a variety of reasons. The question to me is just the Elspeth and the Thragtusk. I think they're powerful if the game drags, but getting to 5-6 mana is asking a lot.
All right. Well, these players are going to shuffle up, sideboard, all that good stuff here for a third and final game. Justin Cohen wins this one. He's a lock for top 8. Dan Musser wins this one. He's in very, very good shape for top 8. But while they get ready for that, we'll talk about our creature collection here with StarCityGames.com. It's Corgi Firewalker, and it's available now in playmat sleeves and player bundles. Go to StarCityGames.com/creature collection so you can see all the members of our creature collection family, and this is the newest one in Corgi Firewalker that, again, you can get in playmats, sleeves, player bundles. Go to StarCityGames.com/creature collection for more information as we get ready here for game number 3 between Justin Cohen and Dan Musser. These two players are right at the very top of the standings. Justin Cohen currently in first place, been in first place for most of the weekend here. Don't see him a lot on the SCG Tour, but we see him enough, and when we do, he's typically winning.
Well, you know, he said he made a mistake by not going to Vancouver. Mm-hmm. If he only knew
yeah,
when Sam said we broke it, exactly what that meant, the degree to which it happened. But he was not going to repeat that mistake.
Nope. Oh, wow. He just apologized to our staff for punting.
It's okay. We get a third game out of it.
Also, Justin, you probably know this. Magic's really hard.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier for us here
also,
in the
it's
booth.
not clear he wins the game. I mean, it's still...
It's still very much a question because Musser was at 20.
Right.
And we're still playing Magic.
Yeah. I think he still had an explosive in his hand, too, right?
I think when we closed that game out,
it got Inquisition.
It got Inquisition,
but it would have if he cast something else instead. If he fatal push,
things change a lot.
It's a different game.
Yes.
But yeah, I think you needed to kill something there.
Yeah.
And then you didn't kill something, then you died.
Truthfully, what I think happened is I think he did not realize the interaction on the turn prior, and then the following turn he's like, oh yeah, that does work. Oh no, it's too late.
Yep.
It's too late now. I can't wiggle my way out of this situation. I don't have a black source to search for. That would be a basic. And it's funny because you mentioned that the fact that he was drawing basics was actually kind of bad. Mm-hmm. And in that situation, even though he did traverse for the basic swamp, it did kind of come back.
The fact that he only had 1 black mana to work with was a choke point on various turns.
Yeah.
I think that he had to cast the Death Shadow the turn that he had to instead of leaving up Fatal Push, even though the ceiling on that plays a lot higher, because that swamp represents his whole turn. Yep. And if he loses that turn, he's really far behind. And then, wasn't able to cast multiple spells in the same turn in a variety of spots throughout the game. Cohen here really pondering this opening 7.
His opening hands generally have him in the tank. Again, with Death Shadow, we've mentioned this so many times this week, and we will continue to. The opening hands do not really sell themselves.
Yeah.
They're very strange.
It's hard, and you are also working with unknown information a good percentage of the time.
He's going to play a Mirror's Bauble to start.
Scope out the action.
Yep. Get a little look over at Dan Musser's top card.
Helps with the discard spell.
Very true.
Now I know.
And now he's going to sacrifice a Bloodstained Mire, fall down to 19, most likely 17, given what his deck is trying to accomplish. There's Overgrown Tomb. And there's your discard spell, an Inquisition of Kozilek. Let's see what Musser's working with here. He's got a Hollowed Fountain, 2 Cavernous Souls, and a Brushland. Drowner, Rest in Peace, Thought-Knot Seer.
A slow hand.
Very slow hand.
I think Cohen's hand, though, is similarly slow. I think he's only got discard spells and some lands to work with.
Okay. Dan putting a real premium there on Rest in Peace in this matchup slows down Tarmogoyf, among many other things in Justin's deck.
Yep, you got Liliana to consider. You have Kolaghan's Command. A lot of graveyard synergies.
Ancient Stirring's off the top. Very timely there for Dan Musser. We'll take a look at the top 5 cards. Breeding Pool, Eldrazi Displacer.
This is a hand that could really use a temple.
Well, found it.
Okay, now it's on.
Ring a ding ding. Let's play some Magic now.
Musser's hand went from slow to fast.
We're going to head Justin Cohen's way. He will draw Street Wraith, which means he will likely draw again.
A redraw.
$15. Fatal Push.
I think that was a very dangerous keep from Musser, but the top of the deck cooperated in a big way.
Could have been bad news. That's for sure. Goblet Shriner is the battlefield untapped. I think we're going back to Dan now, who picked up another copy of Thought-Knot Seer. Looks like Hollowed Fountain likely to enter the battlefield tapped, but Musser going to think some things through. He might go towards the Temple. Temple's got some upside here. He will play the Temple and simply pass the turn back over to Justin Cohen. Justin Cohen, sitting at 13 life, will head to his 3rd turn. Draw step. Bauble.
Another cost of the bauble. You don't have the card this turn.
Mm-hmm. But you like that info.
Could be, the fact that Cohen just hasn't found a threat card yet, though, is really problematic.
Verdant Catacombs here. From Cohen's going to bring him down to at least 12, potentially lower. Let's make it 10 as he'll search up a Blood Crypt. Perhaps we'll see a Liliana, the last hope now. He would be away from him to use all of his mana.
Although he may want to sit on the bauble here as a revolt enabler.
For the Fatal Push?
Right, because I don't think he has any other way to do it right now.
Well, here's Liliana.
11 a.m. sealed spectacular players. Your
Down to
round
1.
turns have been posted.
And a 1.
11 a.m.
And a
sealed
2.
spectacular
Getting back
players.
Street Wraith.
Your
Oh,
round
the
turns are
values.
posted.
So many small synergies woven in. But no, it doesn't take much to make cantrip, a free cycle, a good thing to be doing. And all these little synergies, it adds up.
Now, I like playing the Bauble here, but not using it.
Right.
Ah, another Temple here from Musser. Now, where does Dan want to go? Again, a lot of copies of Thought-Knot Seer in hand. We know he's got a Drowner. I do not believe he has a Reality Smasher just yet.
Imagine land Thought-Knot seems pretty straightforward to me.
I don't dislike it, as there's a Cavernous Souls that he's thinking about playing. Likely naming Eldrazi, but we'll get confirmation. And now here is Thought Not Seer. The Cavern of Souls is naming Eldrazi. Now, Thought Not Seer will get a look. 2 Fatal Push, Street Wraith, which could be anything, and an Inquisition of Kozilek.
You can't cut him off the Fatal Push. I guess you have 2 Thought Not Seers. That makes it more attractive to take the Fatal Push. I don't know, if you're playing towards Drowner, it might be Street Wraith. If Cohen's going to be sitting here on this really reactive hand while you're playing towards Drowner, that feels pretty good.
I kind of like taking Street Wraith. I don't care about Inquisition. And I really can't stop all these pushes.
And there's no guarantee the second Fatal Push is even good. He may not find a Revolt Enabler. I guess my feeling is if we're playing Draw Go, Musser's got a huge edge.
Yeah, the longer we go, the better it is.
And I like this. I mean, I know leaving your opponent with 2 Fatal Pushes against your 2 Thought Not Seers doesn't look great. It also means that Liliana is not worth very much right now.
Yep.
Because, he could hypothetically plus, then next turn minus to get the Street Rate back. That's another card.
Another bobble here.
If Cohen's playing off the top of his deck here, and your hand's already rolled up, and he's at 10. I mean, this feels like a good spot to leave Cohen with the hand that he has as much as possible.
Cohen says, all right, let me take a look at what you're going to draw. I've also enabled Revolt. I'll use my Goblet Shrine to play a Fatal Push. Goodbye, Thought Not Seer. Let me draw a card. High Death Shadow.
Okay.
There are worse draws.
We're playing again.
We are playing again.
But Cohen is still going to be swimming upstream against Drowner Hope next turn.
Not an easy one for his deck to beat.
Assuming Musser, now Cohen doesn't know Musser can have it next turn. There's another temple in his hand.
Which I think Musser did a nice job of concealing.
Yeah.
Also, Cohen does not know that there's another Thought Not Seer.
Right. I think he's about to take a look at a hand that's bad news.
Inquisition of Kozilek. Swing and a miss. Eldrazi Temple, Drowner, Thought Not Seer, Cavern of Souls. Those are the 4 cards he doesn't know about. And the one that he does, well, actually he knew about the Drowner. I take that back. But the one that he does know about is a Hollowed Fountain. So he'll write all those contents down. And he will not hit here with the Inquisition of Kozilek. And now it's tough because I'm sure he'd like to play Death Shadow, but I'm not sure that's the best place to be right now.
Well, I don't know what the alternative line is.
I suppose if he just plays Bobble and leaves Fatal Push-Up, then Musser will just play Drowner of Hope.
Right, yep.
Yeah.
I know it looks bad. I mean, the Death Shadow isn't great on this board, but I think the alternative is... I mean, I don't think Musser's going to cooperate. I think he's playing the Drowner next turn for sure.
Here is the Bobble. Here comes a Death Shadow. Now, one thing to note, it feels minor, but it's actually pretty major. Cohen has a draw step coming.
Yep.
With the Bobble. Just want to make sure he doesn't forget because his turn was lengthy.
Yep.
And that's an easy thing to forget because it's so strange. But the Pro Tour runner-up does not forget that trigger. Now it's Musser's turn. Death Shadow right now, 3/3. Not that big, but it doesn't take much.
I don't know. And with the removal that Cohen's shown and Fatal Pushes and Tar Fires and so forth, I just want to cast the Drowner this turn. I think it's a very hard card for Cohen to get off the battlefield.
I want the Drowner this turn as well. And so does Dan Musser.
Now you can argue it's a little bad because of the Liliana the Last Hope can take care of a Scion, but then you just tap the Death Shadow and whatever.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Now, will Justin Cohen use the Bobble? That's maybe yes now. But continue your thought.
Oh, just, I know that there's, Cohen's light on cards. There's some argument to just Thought Knot him and maybe get the last thing out of his hand. But I'm not risking a Thoughtseize off the top taking care of this Drowner. Because Cohen can beat a Thought-Knot-Seer on the battlefield. That's not that hard. Beating the Drowner, much more complicated.
Well, he found a Thoughtseize off of the Bobble Trigger and then a Swamp for his draw step. Not the most exciting couple of draws, I will say that.
And this is why I think, to go back to several turns ago, why I liked Musser getting the Street Wraith out of the hand, because I think that Street Wraith in the graveyard as just another draw step for Cohen is a lot more valuable than anything else he can do with this Liliana right now. And the Fatal Push that Cohen got left in the hand, Musser's not super concerned with right now. In part because there's no guarantee that Cohen's able to enable Revolt easily going forward. And in fact, his hand can't right now. It's a land, it's 2 Thoughtseizes and a Fatal Push. You know what? We might go to time.
We might, actually.
We might go to time.
Yeah, that's in play. That is in play.
And now Cohen's kind of in the squeeze here, where he knows he has to Thoughtseize to get rid of the Thought-Knot-Seer.
He would like to, for sure, yeah.
But Musser has the ability on the table to just flip it and attack for a lot of damage. And can Cohen afford the life loss? But then, to get the Death Shadow to a point where Musser has to respect it at all, he needs to get his life total a little bit lower. And that's why I think the best path against Death Shadow is be able to maintain the game and burst in one turn.
Yeah.
Because that puts a lot more tax on them Thoughtseizing and Street Wraithing, and Cohen's now in that squeeze.
Liliana's going to move up, and I think, yeah, Dan is going to tap that Death Shadow. He's certainly not going to miss that.
Modern Classic players, that is time of the round. Active player is turn 0, you have 5 additional turns. If you have a time extension or have any questions about this,
2 Thoughtseizes, a Swamp, and a Fatal Push here for Justin Cohen. He's going to have to come to a decision here pretty soon.
Yep. I think the judge, or spotter on the table rather, asked him to make a play.
It's about that time. Now, I don't know if it was Reality Smasher, but I think it was.
Well, that simplifies things, I think.
It kind of does.
Because there's not a lot of removal here. And he basically would need to... And Musser's at 19. Even if you got him low and didn't kill him somehow, it's asking a lot on the way back.
Yep. And you've got a decent feel for what his hand is.
Yeah. And you know, the risk here is that, you know, you play the Reality Smasher and attack, your Drowner gets killed, and now you're exposed on the way back.
I suppose the question I'd ask myself if I was Dan right now is, okay, well, if I play this, how does he kill one of my 2 5/5s that costs a bunch of mana?
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
what weird wonky spell does he have that all of a sudden one of these is dying?
I mean, he could have a sideboarded Terminate.
That's true. That's true.
And that's the concern on this line.
Yeah, but that line is good to go. Dan Musser going to win this match over Justin Cohen. 2-1. Bantel Drazi going to take care of Death Shadow. Justin Cohen's got his first loss of the tournament. More importantly, Dan Musser's got his 11th win